Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dragon's Bounty by Millie Taiden, narrated by Elizabeth Russell. Chapter 1. Have you ever killed anyone? Katrina looked up from her laptop and met the sad blue eyes of the teen she was protecting. Emily was a witness to a murder that brought down one of the biggest crime lords in the nation, Daniel Franks. Sadness gripped Katrina's heart and squeezed. Even though Katrina had seen murder play out in front of her, she couldn't imagine what was going on in Emily's mind. The girl was too young to watch her parents be killed in cold blood, and most likely needed to see a therapist. It wasn't fair when kids got wrapped up in the middle of the darkness that plagued the world. That's what crime was to Katrina. A plague. Studying Emily, Katrina shook her head and answered her question. No, I've never killed anyone. Oh. Emily went back to reading her book, long blonde braid falling over one shoulder. Katrina focused on the report she was typing, detailing the last 48 hours. She was surprised the 15-year-old was holding up as well as she was. The scene was so horrific, Katrina had a hard time being in the house longer than she needed to be. The murderer was in custody, waiting for his arraignment. Until he went to trial, Emily would be placed in the witness protection program with a couple who were also agents. It was better than placing Emily in the foster system that couldn't protect her from Franks's men. For the time being, she and Emily were staying at Katrina's family cabin. It wasn't among the list of FBI witness protection safe houses, nor was it in Katrina's name. It'd take Frank's men some extensive digging to find them. By the time they discovered the cabin's whereabouts, Katrina and Emily would be gone. The muffled sound of a car door shutting put Katrina on alert. She wasn't expecting anyone. Meeting Emily's wide-eyed stare, Katrina placed a finger over her lips and rose from her seat at the dining room table. She pulled her Glock from her holster and clicked off the safety as she moved to the door. She peeked through the curtains of the small window beside the door. There was nothing there. Glancing at Emily, Katrina frowned. Did you hear a car door? I thought I heard something. Emily drew her brows together, a hint of fear in her stare. Katrina tightened her grip on the gun and moved to the window on the other side of the door. She lifted the curtain just enough to look outside. The cabin had motion lights surrounding the house, yet none of them had been tripped. Had she imagined the noise? It had been a long, tiring day. Who the hell would be out in the middle of nowhere in the Rocky Mountains? Gun still in her grasp, she crossed the room to Emily. An uneasiness settled in her gut, and as she reached for the girl, the front door blew open. The wood splintered into pieces, a large chunk smashing Katrina in the knee. Pain radiated up her leg, slowing her reaction to the large man rushing toward them. Katrina lifted her Glock and fired. So did the man. Searing pain tore through her shoulder, and she fell backward, slamming her head on the corner of the coffee table. She caught a glimpse of Emily on the floor, blood all around her. No! Katrina shot up in bed, a scream lodged in her throat. Sweat covered her body and her heart pounded. The scar on her shoulder from the gunshot wound burned. She rubbed it as tears blurred her vision and she trembled all over. Shade burst into her room and fell into a defensive stance before locking gazes with her. His black hair had a bad case of bedhead, and his brown eyes were wild with concern. Shaking her head, she waved to him to go back to bed, but the stubborn male crossed the room to her before the words left her mouth. He wore only a pair of black shorts that sat low on his hips. Sitting on the bed beside her, he pulled her into his arms and held her to him. Sighing, she wrapped her arms around him and pressed her cheek to his bare chest. The rapid thump-thump of his heart soothed her, reminding her she was safe and no longer on Earth. "Want to tell me about the dream?" She shook her head. "Later." It wasn't the first time she'd woken him with one of her nightmares, and she had always avoided talking about the dreams. She was relieved he didn't push her for information. In that moment, he let out a growl, but didn't pressure her to tell him. Instead, he crawled under the covers and cuddled her to him. Movement at the bedroom door made her glance up to Daven. He filled the doorway with his wide shoulders. A darkness surrounded him, and she swore she caught a glimpse of his dragon peeking out from his eyes at her. His long auburn hair hung to the top of his shoulder in a mess of loose curls. Like Shade, Daven only wore a pair of shorts, dark blue. He stood perfectly still, watching her and Shade before asking, "Everything good?" "No, ass, it's not." She kept that thought to herself and just laid her head back on Shade's chest. Shade answered for her. "Just a dream." Without a word, Daven left. About 5 minutes later, she heard the front door to the house open and close. Sadness washed over her. He could have come in and laid down with them. As if sensing her disappointment, Shade said, "He's not a cuddler." "Obviously." She sighed. Daven had done everything in his power to avoid her. The only times he couldn't was when she was shopping with the other females. Shade would pretend to have other things to do, forcing Daven to play bodyguard. It was his job, after all. Daven was an enforcer for the king, and Voss wanted her and the other females guarded when they went out, since they were still the only group of surrogates to arrive on Daria. Katrina was there because she was given a choice to live in prison for a murder she didn't commit, or volunteer in the program. The word volunteer was the FBI's word to her when they gave her the ultimatum. Daria sounded like a dream compared to prison. She was told it was a shifter planet that made a trade deal with Earth to get surrogates to rebuild their species and planet. A century, maybe longer, of war left their planet in despair. The rogue wolf alpha who started the war created a magical poison that killed most of the female population. The only ones spared were the children who lived in secured villages around the planet. Nigel, the program liaison and a council member, told her during their initial meeting that the program was voluntary. She had a choice on who she dated, but she was not going to be forced into anything. He also mentioned how a number of her skills in law enforcement and technical training would be beneficial to the Darien people. If she didn't want to be a surrogate, she could easily find a job. Then she met Shade the night he and 3 of his friends picked up her and the other 3 surrogates from the hotel. Shade intrigued her, and he was hot. "I don't know how to connect with him, nor do I understand why he agreed to take a surrogate if he didn't want one." She sure in the hell wasn't chasing him. "He does want one." Shade kissed the top of her head. He's an ass." He could say that again. She wasn't sure she'd be able to go back to sleep. Her brain was awake, and the need to move made her muscles twitch. Before coming to Daria and meeting her alien dragon shifters, she'd go for a run to clear the nightmares from her mind. She could still go for a run, but she didn't know her way around yet. Her runs tended to stretch on for several miles. The point was to force herself into exhaustion. Everything about the dream was fucked up. She didn't remember being in a cabin with Emily. That dream was different from the others. In fact, each one had some kind of element about them that was different. 2 days ago, she dreamt she was escorting Emily to the safe house where she would stay with a married couple who were also FBI agents. Handing Emily off to the couple was the original plan. They'd agreed to keep her until the trial was over so she would have a normal family-like setting to grieve in. Yet Katrina didn't remember the handoff. She remembered the crime scene, Emily's parents murdered in their sleep, and the call that said Franks' hitman was taken into custody. Then nothing until she woke in the hospital with a gunshot wound in her shoulder and no memory how she got it. Shade caressed her cheek before pressing his lips to hers in a soft kiss. If you want to get Daven's attention, you will need to meet him on his terms. Get him to train with you. Don't take no for an answer. Outright challenge him. In other words, become Daven. Katrina laughed, imagining all the ways she could hand Daven's ass to him. Shade flipped her onto her back. Exactly. And do it seductively. Make him mad with need. He kissed the base of her neck, and she groaned. The shakes from the nightmare melted away, replaced with desire for Shade. Are you trying to distract me? Is it working? He lifted his head and stared down at her. His handsome, structured features mesmerized her. Sharp edges, tanned skin with red undertones, like he spent his life working outside. It was a perfect contrast to his pitch-black hair. She cupped his cheek. Maybe. I think you need to try harder. A wicked smirk formed on his face. His brown eyes turned gold, then back to brown. Oh, I'm hard, baby. He rocked his hips into her, pressing his cock into her core. A moan escaped her, and she fisted her hands in his hair. Then she wrapped her legs around his waist. The only things that separated them were her panties and his thin shorts. Still, it was too much fabric. As if having the same thought as she, Shade rose to his knees. He tugged her to sit up to remove her thigh-length nightgown. Then he roamed his gaze over her, igniting an inferno within. When she reached for him, he gripped both her wrists and held them above her head with one of his. With the other hand, he ripped her panties off and tossed them to the floor. His shorts suffered the same fate and landed beside hers. You're hot. He gripped his cock and she groaned. No, he was the hot one, and he was killing her with the way he stroked himself with slow, seductive purpose. Shade. His name came out as a half-plea, half-demand, like she couldn't make up her mind if she wanted to beg him to fuck her or command it. Either way, he needed to hurry before she flipped him onto his back and rode him. What's going on in that dirty mind of yours? He leaned down, positioning his cock at her entrance. Her pussy pulsed and ached, wanting to milk his thick, rock-hard dick. Just calculating how to flip you over and fuck you if you don't stop your damn teasing. A growl rumbled from him, and he spoke in a language she didn't recognize. She knew it was his native tongue, the Darien language. With a quick thrust, he entered her. She cried out and dug her heels into the mattress while lifting her hips to meet his in-and-out motion. Pleasure coiled inside her, growing with each thrust. He hooked his arms under her knees, lifting her hips higher as he pounded deeper into her. God, it felt too damn good. She fisted the sheet and rode the wave of an orgasm that seemed to go on longer than it had ever had. Shade's body tensed right before he roared in his own climax. Pulling out, he lay on his side and rolled her into the curve of his body. She cuddled into him, feeling boneless. Soon, sleep pulled her under. Chapter 2. A snarl ripped from Daven, echoing through the training center as he slammed his fist into the large horned beast. Snap of bone cracked through the room. The creature was the half-dragon, half-wolf beast in the Holosim program Brazen created. HoloSim was a training application that combined technology from holography and simulation and mixed it with the planet's natural magic to develop 3D, solid life forms and surroundings. Daven and the other enforcers used it for sparring and target practice. Daven had Brazen develop a more challenging program for him. The monsters and rogues were meaner and deadlier, just like Daven liked his prey. The ugly bastard he sparred with currently had silver scales with black fur and patches all over its body. 2 large horns jetted out of his forehead and curled over the top of his skull. The creature let out a roar and swung his large fist. Daven ducked, then punched the fucker in the ribs. The beast screeched and swiftly returned the hit. Daven wasn't fast enough. A large clawed fist connected with his side. Pain vibrated through his body, and he stumbled back a few steps. A wicked laugh escaped him as he shook off the ache in his ribs and charged the beast. He caught him in the gut with his shoulder, picked him up, and then threw him down, the beast's back slamming against the stone flooring of the gym. Not giving the creature time to respond, Daven delivered the death blow to his skull. He put all his frustration behind each strike. As he swung again, the creature dematerialized and Daven straightened, waiting for the next one to appear. That was when he caught her scent, sage and berries. Every part of his body tensed and his cock hardened. Fisting his hands, he glanced over his shoulder and fought a groan at the sight of her. Her black hair was tied up in a ponytail, and she wore a purple, form-fitting tank top and pants. She called them leggings or something, that showed off her curves. His palms itched to touch her, to grip her hips as he pounded into her. Fuck. He had it bad. Yet he didn't deserve her. She stood just inside the door with her arms crossed, watching him. A feral desire rolled through him. Why was she there? To tempt him? Or punish him for whatever reason? With a low rumble of a growl, he turned his focus back to the training program. The second and third beasts appeared at the same time. The program was designed to learn Daven's strengths and weaknesses so it could better challenge him. The 2 new creatures were also hybrids, a cross between a large tiger and wolf. Like the first, these stood upright like a humanoid and had hair that covered them in patches. Unlike the dragon-wolf hybrid, they didn't have horns, but had long tusk-like teeth that stuck out from their upper lips. Their hands were claws. Crouching low, he faced off with the creatures. Each one growled and rushed at him at once. He was ready. Shifting his hand into his dragon's claws, he swiped out in a circle, connecting with the first creature. Daven's talons sliced into his chest. Blood oozed from the wound. Without a moment of hesitation, Daven rounded on the second beast and kicked high, striking the bastard in the head with his boot. Beast 2's head snapped to the side, and he stumbled several feet back. Daven snarled as Beast 1 grabbed him from behind, squeezing his arms around Daven's chest. A fierce growl erupted from Daven. He grabbed the beast's head and noted that 2 was charging forward. Using 1 for leverage, Daven jumped up, which pushed his back into 1's chest, and kicked out, hitting 2 in the stomach with both feet. 2 flew backward from the force of Daven's kick. Daven laughed as his feet touched the ground. With quick, fluid movements, he bent at the waist, pulling 1 by the head to flip him over. 1 landed on his back so hard the building shook, but Daven didn't let go of his head. With a quick twist, Daven broke his neck. The beast vanished. 1 down, 2 to go. Daven zeroed in on 2 and roared as he charged. He hit 2 in the throat with his arm, then punched him in the side. 2 swiped with his claws as he fell to the ground, slashing Daven in the side. Hot, burning pain shot up his side. Growling, Daven ignored the ache and lifted his leg, then brought it down, crushing Two's skull. The program ended, and he slowly turned to face Katrina. There were no signs of distress in her gaze. In fact, she was aroused. He inhaled deeply, taking in the sweet scent that was all her. Fuck. He wanted her. Wanted to be buried deep inside her while he fucked her and claimed her as his mate. His dick jerked at the thought, and his dragon paced under his skin, wanting out to play with their mate. Not today, pal. Maybe not ever. Daven didn't deserve her. There were too many broken pieces in his past. His hands were blood-stained, and he had no memory of what he'd done in a fit of rage. Straightening to his full height, he faced her. She gave him a sideways smile and moved to the weapons vault. He stood there like a horny adolescent, watching her hips sway as she walked. Without a conscious thought of what he was doing, he crossed the gym and stopped inches from her. Being that close, he smelled her lavender soap, and the hint of Shade's scent lingered on her skin. Jealousy rose up, but he shook it off. Daven wasn't jealous of Shade. He envied his friend for his laid-back, easygoing outlook on life, and the way Katrina looked at the male. She looked at Daven with leeriness in her depths. Katrina placed her hand on the panel, pressing her palm to the screen to unlock the vault. It opened with a hiss, and she slowly made her selection. She picked up a hand blaster, then lifted it to check the charger. "Do you want to join me?" Damn, she looked hot in the way she gripped the blaster. He didn't answer, just stood behind her, observing. There was no way he'd spar with her. That would mean he'd have to touch her. Once he did, there was nothing stopping him from stripping her bare and claiming every inch of her. She turned to face him, then leaned into him. The movement caught him off guard, and he gripped her hips. Fire blazed in her dark chocolate depths, her scent sharpening with her arousal. A low growl vibrated in his chest as he dipped his head to claim her lips. She opened immediately and wound her arms around his neck. Desire ignited inside him, boiling his blood. Fuck, she tasted like the heavens. He swiped his tongue inside her mouth, and as soon as it touched hers, the wildfire building inside burst. Wild passion rolled through him, making his cock impossibly hard. Katrina pressed into him like she was trying to squeeze every bit of air from between them. Sensations rushed along his nerves as she threaded her fingers through his hair, and her nails gently scraped his scalp. He deepened the kiss and moved his hands to cup her ass. A groan escaped from Katrina as she sucked on his tongue. Daven broke the kiss and stepped back to put a few feet of distance between them. Shaking his head to clear the lusty haze clouding his thoughts, he met her stare. This can't happen, ever again. He turned on his heels and left. Yes, he was an ass, but he was protecting her from the rogue simmering within. He couldn't taint her with his darkness. She was too good, too pure. She was better off mating Shade. "You can't run from me for long." Her words stopped him a few feet from the door. He glanced over his shoulder and narrowed his eyes at her. "What does that mean?" She stared at him for several long moments, then shook her head. "You're running from something you want. Or maybe it's something you don't want, but your dragon does." Was she psychoanalyzing him? Turning to fully face her, he crossed his arms. "I'm not running from anything." She rolled her eyes and gave her back to him. "Then what do you call it? If I'm not a mate for you, then you need to say so." He crossed the room with his supernatural speed, gripped her by the upper arm, and tugged. She had the blaster drawn and pressed to his groin before her body was facing his. He lifted a brow. She mimicked him. His dragon laughed in his head. Mine. Yes, she was. Strong-willed, stubborn, and fucking hot. But he couldn't claim her. Not yet. With a snarl, he said, "You are mine. Don't ever forget it." Then he left. He needed a cold fucking shower. Then again, he doubted that would extinguish the wildfire she ignited in his veins. Damn female. Chapter 3. Katrina tightened her grip on the hand blaster and glared at Daven's head as he stormed out of the gym. The urge to set the blaster to the low, non-lethal setting and shoot him in the ass was too tempting. Did he really think she'd let that panty-melting kiss mean nothing? Then he confessed she was his mate, yet he kept her at a distance. Damn dragon. She wasn't a fucking yo-yo. After picking up the thigh holster, she strapped it on, then slid the blaster into the sheath. She moved to the large flat-screen monitor. Lifting her fingers, she paused, her eyes going to the replay button. Daven's program was still loaded. Did she dare restart his program? Brazen had built a training program custom to each of the enforcers. With her background in the FBI, Brazen also built one of her own. At first, she planned to use the program to keep up her physical strengths and as a distraction from her nightmares. Then Voss offered her a position on the council a few weeks ago, and she accepted without hesitation. She was thrilled to start working with Nigel on the surrogate program and with the females that would be arriving in the next month or so. That was when Brazen added amped-up self-defense elements to her program. She loved the challenges he added. Staring at the screen with Daven's program still up, she hovered her fingers near the replay button. Her blood boiled from Daven's kiss and the annoyance of his escape. The man frustrated her and made her achy with desire. She craved a workout that would exhaust her into a sleep so deep her nightmares couldn't disturb her. What the hell? She pressed the replay button, then grabbed a second blaster and holster. Let's kick some alien monster ass. Katrina was hot and sweaty, and it wasn't from getting dirty with her mates. She'd been battling the first creature in Daven's training program for about 30 minutes, which felt like hours. The fucker wouldn't die, at least not from being shot by the blaster, and she couldn't get a good headshot. He was too fast and strong, at least for her human speed. Okay, so training in Daven's program wasn't the best idea she'd had. However, she wasn't a quitter. The creature swiped his hand out and connected with Katrina's shoulder and raked his claws down her back. Searing pain exploded across her skin, and she cried out, then growled, "Bastard!" Whirling around, she kicked out, connecting with the beast's jaw with her foot. He stumbled back a couple steps and roared at her. She aimed the blaster at his crotch area and fired. The beast screeched and fell to his knees, shaking the floor. Talk about a realistic holosim program. She should have done that 20 minutes ago. The movement gave her a clear shot to his head, so she fired, hitting him between the eyes. He fell backward and slammed against the floor. Then he vanished. And she was done. Moving to the computer, she stilled and met Shade's stare. His brows were drawn and lips pursed. His eyes were a swirl of light and dark, as if the man and dragon were watching. And they weren't happy. She sighed and shut down the program. I needed a bigger challenge this morning, and something to kill after the brief time with Daven. She turned to face Shade. Why is he fighting his attraction? Frowning, Shade crossed the gym to her. Daven believes he is broken. He won't be able to fight his dragon or the mating urge much longer. Katrina clicked the safety on the blasters and returned them to their place in the weapons vault. Then she hung the holster up. He's frustrating. Besides, she wanted him so badly, she was sure she'd have a permanent ache in her soul. Shade cupped her face.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?